Hi, welcome to this edition of Fascinating Women Touching the World. Well, my name is Dahne, and I am an inner healing coach. And the reason I love to coach women is because I really want to help women get unstuck so that they can live a more full life. And when I say that, I mean more hopeful, more prayerful, and even more playful. Well, I see my role as a coach in two aspects. I see myself as a spiritual coach as well as an emotional coach, because here's what I know. I know that what we believe has the power to affect and change our whole life. Well, I'm doing this platform of Fascinating Women Touching the World because I love to see women be highlighted. I love to see them be highlighted when they are having a business or when they're having a ministry, because I love the idea that they could then share with the world what they're doing, and then you could connect with them. So today I have a very, very special guest. You may have already met her online, but it's the first time that I've had the pleasure to have her on my platform. Well, she is a woman who loves the topic of health. But what I find fascinating about her is she's just not interested only in the physical aspect of health, but the emotional and also the nutritional component that goes with it. Well, my guest, Melissa, is a health coach, and she's a mentor to many people, primarily women, but listen, she works with men too, because listen, we all get in a rut. She is a teacher in lots of ways. And in fact, I'm going to ask her to share with us how she's teaching children all around the world. Well, I have to tell you, it is truly my pleasure to introduce to you not only a phenomenal coach, not only someone who is a very special friend of mine, but this is a young woman who's soon to be my daughter-in-law. Would you please introduce and invite in Melissa Bangert?
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and I can't wait to share with you what I do and why it's so important to me. So thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure having you on here with us. Okay, so let me ask you specifically, Melissa, how are you uniquely helping people to get unstuck so that they can live full?
Well, the most important thing about my business and what I do, I am an online entrepreneur. I am a business owner. I am a online health and fitness coach with Beachbody. And a lot of people hear the term online health and fitness coach and they think, well, what does that mean? And are you certified? And there's a lot of questions that come up. But my job to help women, particularly, as you said, and I do help men from time to time, but my business has been primarily women up to this point. I help them get unstuck by gathering us all together in a community. So I have an online platform where all of the women who have decided to join, I call it a boot camp, an online boot camp. And my boot camp is named Up Level Fit, because we are constantly a work in progress and always trying to up level our own lives.
Yeah.
So that word has become very important to me, and that is what I call my boot camp. And so what is so special about it is that it's a place where we can all come together, and if we're feeling vulnerable, we can be vulnerable. If we need support, we can come to each other for support. So it's not just me getting someone connected with a fitness program and saying, good luck. Right. It's so much more than that.
Which is important because, vulnerability has to have a place that's safe. Otherwise, it can't exist and it won't unmask itself. And you've been actually doing this social platform way before the coronavirus, right? It's not like you had to learn, like so many of us, how to do this online. You've been doing this for a while, haven't you?
Yes, this is actually celebrated my 6th year as a coach in March. But I would say that it has definitely transitioned in a really positive way since the coronavirus has become the issue that it has for so many of us. I really felt the need to serve in a way that was not necessarily connected to people purchasing a program, either fitness or nutrition related. And I began to just create, and I created free guides, and I have 11 workouts that I have just been giving people access to so that people can really see what it's like to be part of my community. I have allowed people access to my community that typically I only allow access to those who purchase a program and commit to something financially. But I have opened my doors to my online community for women just to be able to come be a part of something when we feel so disconnected from everything else in life.
Well, and here's the thing, those that really love what they do, right? It's like we look for ways to provide our services, sometimes even for free, right? You know, there's something very holy about being able to earn an income, you know, earn a life income, you would say, from out of the God-given gifts and talents that we've been given. But there's something so beautiful about a woman who's so passionate about what she does that she looks for opportunities to give them away to those, just to get a taste, because sometimes we don't know how much we need community until we've actually stepped into community. And then we're like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for, right? You know, listen, I learned when I served as a chaplaincy director at a substance abuse center, you cannot do recovery alone. And we're all recovering from something, and especially when it comes to our physical and our nutritional health. Amen?
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing that. You've been doing that for 6 years. So you're not just brand new to this. And what I find fascinating about you is that the best coaches are the people that have come through this for their own sake, right? So you had your own health journey. You want to share a little bit about that?
I would love to. I would say I was probably about 27 years old. And this also is something that a lot of people don't know about me, which I can expand on more later, but just a little bit of background. I had things going on with my body physically that I did not know were actually mental issues.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better word than issues. Issues sound so negative to me. And I know that mental illness is a very serious, it's very serious, and it's very,
Prevalent.
it seems, yes, that's the perfect word. Especially right now with everything happening in the world. So I started to develop some of my own mental issues, and my doctor said to me, you need to start working out. I was blessed to have a doctor who helped me to find the right medication for me, but it was not the first avenue that we took. And it was not very long before he took me off of that medication and said, you need to start working out. And I had always been, I was an athlete in high school and college, and then I just kind of became sedentary. And it was, most people can relate to, once that happens in your life, it's very hard to get back into some kind of routine that you're willing to stick to. So for me, I started running. I started walking, which I built up to running. And then from there, I actually did Weight Watchers, which worked very well for me for a good amount of time. And I took off some weight. And then it just kind of stopped. And I realized I had lost this weight, but I still wasn't feeling good. And that was when I discovered Beachbody. And I was lucky enough to have someone say, you should do this program with me, that I had never heard of before. And we did that program together for 3 weeks. She's actually my sister-in-law now. But she's an ex-professional softball player. And so 3 weeks into the program, her knee filled with fluid and she had to quit. So I actually finished it by myself. And from there, I was introduced into the world of coaching. And that's kind of where my story began. I was 35 pounds heavier, and I lost 35 pounds and was able to overcome all of my mental issues solely through taking care of my health and wellness.
You know, for those that were able to meet with Mercy Rice on this platform, she has lost over 100 pounds. And she said that what she lost was so much more precious than just the weight, right? It's what you gain. It's like
Yeah.
you not only lose, you lost 35 pounds, but it's what you gain, right? That's equally of really more value, right? In that. So you've been doing this for quite a while. Since I've known you, you have been a very nutritionally minded, because for you discovered the elixir, you might say, of how to feel sane. Let's
Yes.
face it, us women, we're just like walking hormones. I was thinking that you were talking about the college girls, which this is a very old story. We go to college and we get fat. We start eating pizza and drinking beer and whatever. I didn't go to college, but I know that, that probably would have been my story, right? But it's a story of a lot of people. But I was also thinking that, like, the 40s and the 50-year-olds that, are going through hormonal changes again, and they start, finding this extra 10, actually 20 pounds, on them just from this, perspective that hormones are raging. And then when you don't feel good, you don't feel like working out. And so not only do you need to work out, but you need, nutritional components, but you also need a community, because when we're tired, we don't want to work out, but you have this great accountability, right?
Yeah.
In your group. So I know that this is your biggest passion, that you do spend a lot of your time with. I know that you also do something very interesting that, I'm going to let you talk about your life as a teacher. I mean, a real teacher, and how you've morphed into something fascinating online, because that might be, I don't know, that might be a key for someone today who's crying out to the Lord saying, I need something different. So take us back a little bit, how you have been actually teaching children and what you're doing today.
So I went right to college after high school, and I went to Florida State University, and I spent 4 years there and did not receive even a 2-year degree, which is a whole nother story for another day. I was not ready emotionally to go to college when I did. So I actually did not complete my degree until I was 34 years old. And I received a degree in bachelor's in elementary education. I knew all my life that I wanted to teach my entire life. As a teenager, I was a counselor in summer camps, and I always did something that was related to children in some form or fashion. And then
I just say that's the signature of God on our lives. I hope every listener is saying, what have I always loved to do? That's a part of God's fingerprints on your life. So all your life, you knew you wanted to be a teacher.
My entire life. And then I went on at 40 to get my master's degree in curriculum and instruction, because I have a real love for learning new curriculum and teaching teachers how to integrate it into their classrooms, which I have not done anything about yet. But I've been teaching for 10 years and in a classroom, 9 in a classroom. I did a year of kindergarten, 2 years of pre-K. I did 7 as a 4th grade teacher and 1 year as a PE teacher, which I really thought was going to be where my heart was because of my love for physical activity and health and fitness. And it was actually the hardest teaching year I've ever had in my entire career. It was tough. So I knew that was my most recent teaching job. And I knew that it was not a position that I wanted to return to. And at the time, my principal was willing to put me into a 4th grade classroom, which is where my love is. And I just didn't feel like the environment that I was in was right for me. And as an educator, I'm sure most educators can tell you that you do what's in the best, just like a mother would, you do what's in the best interest for your students, not for yourself. Right. You never do. And so as an educator, you always think to yourself, these kids need me, and therefore I need to stay whether I'm happy or not. But I reached a point in my teaching career where I just couldn't anymore. And so I started looking for other teaching positions in the county in which we live, and I couldn't find anything. And there were a plethora of jobs open, but I just could not get one. So I started teaching with VIP Kid. which is an online platform that teaches English to kids in China.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So I'm on my computer every morning. That's why I have this map in the background. We have to have like an educational background, because that's all our students see. This square that you see of me is what they see of me every morning. So they are 12 hours ahead of us time-wise. So I teach from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. straight through, and classes are 25 minutes each. So I essentially sit down and teach 8 classes. And I'm very community driven. And so my classroom was always the community. That always came first. I didn't care about the academics the first 2 weeks of school. My focus was solely getting to know my kids and having my kids know me so that they could feel comfortable in my environment. And I felt like I would lose that as an online teacher. I couldn't hug my students anymore. I couldn't connect with them. And that has turned out to be so far from the truth. And I've been able to learn about an entirely different culture that I knew nothing about before. So it's been really, really rewarding.
And it's so amazing that here you doing what you love, which is teaching children. And what grade are these kids mostly?
They're anywhere from, I don't have many that are under 5. I do teach a 3-year-old who has amazing English. So they're primarily 5 up to the age of 13. It could be anywhere in there.
And so the reason we wanted to mention this is because, number one, how the thread of being a teacher is all throughout your life, but how there's somebody that they're crying out for something different. There's a nudge. There's this, I would say the sovereignty of God is nudging them, saying there's something for you that's different. And you get to, like you said, learn about a whole nother culture. You're teaching children on the other side of the world, and your day goes from 4:30 to 9, but then you have your whole day, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's fascinating. How do you think that being a teacher to these children in China is likened to being a coach, a health coach to women? What is the common thread?
I love that question, because as most women do, most people, but particularly women, we have a tendency to not see the things in ourselves that other people see in us. And so for me, and that's always been a big thing for me. And so for me, I always thought, well, I'm a fantastic educator. There are not many things in my life that I say I'm really good at, but I am a great teacher. And so I thought to myself, why do I feel like less of a coach when I'm essentially doing the exact same thing? I'm just teaching adults. I'm not teaching kids. So I've had to really realize that I've had to quit that comparison game and realize that I have something to offer that's completely different as an educator, because I know how to teach. And so I've kind of found my niche. It was interesting to hear you say earlier about women in their 40s and 50s and hormones beginning to wreak havoc on your body, because I'm approaching 45. And up until, I would say, 44, it's been pretty smooth sailing for me. And within the last year, I have struggled. I have continued to eat well. I have continued to exercise, and I have steadily gained weight. And it's been very frustrating. And so I've been able to, with teaching students, I've been able to shift my mindset back into that teaching mode, and begin to really teach people how to figure out what's right for them, because nutrition is not one size fits all.
Mm-mm. And I prefer to work with people who, one of two things, either they're in the midst of the journey with me, or they are, in this case, it would be a woman who was maybe, I'm almost 60, but, say she's 70 or 75 and has gone where I've gone, and she's on the other side of that river saying, come on over, you won't drown. Those are the kind of people I like to work with. So, for a woman listening today who's like Mel says, I mean, here she is, very nutritionally minded, physically fit, watching her input, and yet still finding that this is not a myth, right? When we go through these changes in life, there are some things that are going to happen, but it's better to happen in community, and it's better to happen with wisdom, so that we, number one, don't believe the lie that we're alone, and number two, start to do some really drastic things. Well, one of the things I'm curious about, is that you lead so many women, you mentor them, you coach them. Where do you find you most struggle? Do you find that you struggle more in the physical aspect of it, or do you find that you struggle more in the dietary aspect of it?
Yes, the physical is a no-brainer for me. And most people will say to you, I hate working out, or I don't like to run, or I haven't worked out in so long because I just don't like it. And that is a common theme for most people.
Mhm.
The key is finding something that makes you feel good while you're working out. And for me, the gym, all the years that I did it, was not my feel good place. I didn't know what to do. I needed someone to say, do this and eat this.
Yeah.
I needed my hand held.
Yeah.
And nutrition has always been the biggest struggle for me. I grew up in a house where we had ice cream every night after dinner. I have come from a long line of family members with major sweet tooths.
Yeah.
And so it's always been a struggle for me. But what I have learned and been able to share with my community, what you said about community it's so true. And the vulnerability, because I go into my community at least once a week on a live stream and cry. This is my struggle this week, just full on tears. And they always open their arms and say how refreshing it is. You're our leader, and yet you're not perfect. You are struggling too. And
We want our leaders to not be perfect.
Right. And so for me, nutrition has always been the biggest struggle, especially because people don't know what to eat, the way things are marketed in our country to look like they're healthy, but really they're not. And it really just comes from education and really having someone that can guide you and say, that's not good for you. And here's why.
Homework. Because here's the thing, there's so much to know, but somebody, thankfully, in different areas of our life, whether it's our finances, nutrition, they've gone further than we can or even want to go. So they'll share that wealth of information with us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my favorite ways to exercise is through rebounding. A lot of people don't know.
I love it.
I love rebounding. It's like, it's so playful. And what that is a mini trampoline for those of you that don't know what it is. Anyway, it's fascinating. NASA came up with it to try to help astronauts not lose so much bone and muscle. And what they discovered was something phenomenal. I don't know if you know this about me, Mel, but I used to be many years ago, many pounds and many years ago, I was I would say an aerobic instructor, but I was always low impact with weights. I always was in love with weights. And
me too. I did not know that.
Yes, I was for many years. And we'll have to share that on another interview sometime.
Yeah.
I did that for many, many years. And you're never in the best shape than when you're leading other people because, as an instructor, I had to be at the gym every day leading groups. And then sometimes I had to lead 2 groups, sometimes rarely, but sometimes even more if somebody called in sick. So yeah, it was good and painful sometimes. So what is a tip that you can leave with us today, like whether it be through nutritional idea or an exercise that, especially for a woman that's kind of stuck in the house right now?
I have so many ideas. But one of the things that I like to give people things they can do with minimal equipment, because I'm lucky enough to have weights in my house, and I've accumulated things over the years because I've been doing at-home fitness for so long. But I have these sliders, and you can use paper plates. That's how simple it is. If you're going to you can really use paper plates either on a carpet or on a hard surface. They will move either way. But one of the things I like to work my core. It's really important for your core to be strong. That's the center of everything that holds you up. So that's really important. But a lot of people don't like to lay down and do sit-ups. They're not fun. So some things that you can do with these, you can put your hands on them as if you were in a plank position, and you can move them in and out. The simplest movement, not too far out because you'll end up on your face, but just a little bit in front of you. I also like to put them on under my toes and pull my knees in. You can pull in one leg at a time, or you can pull in two at a time, depending on your strength. I love to use the plates because it works your core in a whole different way than laying down on your back and doing a traditional sit-up or a crunch.
Well, I think that's phenomenal. And if that is an idea of how you're leading women, I just say double bravo, because I know a lot about exercises, but it goes to show you there's no end to the creativity of how we can move our body. And, you know, this is something I'm very much more so than ever interested in as I, you know, am moving towards being 60. I want to embrace it with breath and bouncing and balance and strength. So I'm going to be adding that to my repertoire. Well, you know, I would like you to share something with us that maybe your average social media follower doesn't know about you, that they might be surprised to find out.
This sort of changed as we were talking. I had one thing I was going to talk about, and then I sort of touched on it. And so then I thought, let's share this. When I initially went, I didn't share this a lot until recently because I was embarrassed. It's something that I'm not proud of, but I now see that it has made me who I am now. When I was growing up, I was always there are 4 kids in my family, and I fall in the middle. I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. And I have always kind of been, and now I never really got into any serious trouble, but if there were any one of us that was going to be categorized as the black sheep, it was me. Oh, okay. And that's probably like that's a self-label, but I'm pretty sure nobody in my family would disagree with it. And so I went away to college, like I said before, and the reason I did not receive a degree in 4 years is because I failed out. And I was an honor roll student in high school. I had to work, but it was on a whole nother level when I went to college. And I just wasn't mentally or emotionally prepared to be as far from my family as I was. And I just made a steady decline. And I ended up failing out. And it took me until I was about 30 years old to go back to school and actually start working on my degree. My dad said to me, if you don't go back, you never will. Yeah. It's going to be very hard for you to go back. And so it kind of became, as being labeled the black sheep, it kind of became my mission. I'm going to finish that degree. I don't care how old I am. And I moved a few times, but I did it. And then I went on to become the only member of my family that has a master's degree. So it was sort of like that one notch that said, like, oh yeah, well, I'll show you the black sheep can get a master's degree when none of you have one. So
I just have to say, for me, I mean, I had no idea what you were going to share. I never know what my guests are going to share. I think for me, that just touches my heart, and for 100 reasons. I'm always thinking about, what is the listener hearing? They're hearing that it's never too late. You know, they're hearing that, yes, it feels hard today, but it's going to feel harder in 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, we never know what we can accomplish until we actually put ourselves out there to try. And I love, Melissa, that you just chose to be so vulnerable. That just makes me love you even more. And here's what you proved. You're proving that the more that we, you know, take off the mask, the more that we open up our heart, you know, the more that we show people who we really are, 2 things happen. We get more free. Hallelujah. And the second thing is, other women get more free too. Because as soon as we talk about who we really are, not who people imagine us to be, it gives them the freedom to then say, well, this is who I really am. And, you know, many years ago, I was asked to speak at really my first women's conference. And I talked about the subject that they asked me to, and it was good, you know, but the Holy Spirit honestly just nudged me and he said, you're not identifying with them. And I was like, but it's finished. And And he said, but you're not identifying with them. And I was like, nobody had ever challenged me to identify with the women. So when I went, you know, in a nutshell, this is what I did is I asked every woman who could identify with me in some way to stand up. And so I started, you know, with whose family, who came through a divorced family, who went into a foster home, who got caught up into drugs as a young person trying to numb their pain, you know, who became pregnant as a teenager, like me, you know, who, you know, had a husband that died, you know, who became remarried and become a part of a blended family, and then blah, 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 blah. And the whole room was standing, you know, and women came up to me so much, Melissa, at the end of that. And this is kind of how it looked. It was almost be like they look over their shoulder and they say, oh my God, when you said that you were 16 when you got pregnant, it set me free. Because they were carrying around this shame, right? How many women are walking around with a shame that I went to college and I didn't even leave with a degree? And I just thank you that, Mel, you just busted the shame today. In Jesus' name, I just thank you for that.
I think that we look at women, especially women we admire or women we follow, and we assume that they haven't lived any of those difficulties. They haven't. We do. We look at people as if they're not people, right, who have experienced things that so many people go through. And I was embarrassed for a very long time. Even though I went back and finished my degree, I was embarrassed that I allowed myself to fail out. But when I grew enough to really focus on it while holding down a full-time job and went back and finished my college degree with a 3.8 and my master's degree with a 3.9, I knew my path was not I wasn't meant to finish school. I was meant to experience what I did as a teenager when I went away to college, but I was not meant to finish that way.
Well, and you know, and regardless of either way of the why, here's what we know. It's worth to be shared. It's worthy to be shared because it frees other women. So thank you for that, for your being vulnerable, which sets you more and more free. And this is what I love about inner healing. You know, it's about peeling away the layers that most of the time we self-impose. Mm-hmm. We put these things on ourselves. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to just have some fun questions for you. Okay. What is the best book you've read this year?
Oh, Fear is My Homeboy.
Oh, okay. Who wrote that?
Judy Holler.
Okay. Fear is My Homeboy. Okay.
Yes, I'll show it to you. It's right here.
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
This is why I love to ask women because I never even heard of it. I like that too. I'm going to check that out.
It's really good.
Okay. So here's a hard question, but you know, within 5 seconds, think about if you could only choose one word to define you, what would it be? The first thing that comes to you.
Witty.
All right. I have to agree with that. Okay. If you could go anywhere in the entire world to go visit, where would you go?
Europe. All over Europe.
All over Europe. Okay. Any one place in particular that
I would start in London.
Ah, yeah. Do you know that actually in 2 weeks, Jim and I were supposed to be in Paris with our best friends, but that darn Corona. Okay, last question. Pilates or weightlifting?
Weightlifting.
Yeah. And if anybody, you know, follows Mel, you know that she does all kinds of workouts right there on her platform so that you can follow along. Okay, so Mel, how can people connect with you?
You can connect with me through my email, which is melissabangert@gmail.com. I am on both social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, but if you were to go to my Facebook, you will see I'm not as present on there because most of my audience is on Instagram. So I can be found under Melissa Bangert, Melissa _ wait, is it underscore? Yes, Melissa _ Bangert. And yeah, those are my two primary. I do have a YouTube channel, but it is mostly, which I could share, it's mostly targeted towards my teacher audience, anyone who teaches online. But that's also something that I could share. I do share health and fitness tips on there once in a while.
Yeah, so what is the YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is, That's a good question.
All right, I can put it in the show notes when we're done. I don't want
Okay, I'll send it to you.
I'm going to remember that because I think somebody listening to this is going to say, I want to know more about that. And is it the teaching the children in China, is it VIP kids or kid?
Kid, no S.
VIP kid.
Yes, and my YouTube platform, one of the things that I make videos about is I'm also a mentor teacher. So anybody who wants to join VIP Kid, my job is to mentor them through the application process and into the first several months or however long they need that support of teaching. So that's something I can share with you as well. That will connect everybody to all of my VIP Kid resources.
So it's VIPkid.com?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to put that in the show notes. Okay. Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to get that YouTube information and add it to the show notes. Well, I want to give you the last word, Mel. I want to tell you, I love this platform because I've known you for so many years, and here I've learned a few things about you, and you've learned a thing or two about me too. This is what I really love when women get together. So what is the last word you want to leave with us?
I think something that stood out as you were talking that I think is really important to share is that you should never, ever look at your life and say, well, I'm 70, or well, I'm 60, or well, whatever age you think is too old to start taking care of yourself. Because as long as you are breathing life, breathing air, it's time to take care of yourself, to learn more about how to do that, what will work for you. And I'm here for anybody who wants to talk about that or needs any information. But I just think it's really important to note that you're never too old to start really taking care of yourself mentally and physically.
And you would probably say never too old and never too young. So
right.
Our young listeners, maybe you're 12, 13, 14, and you're struggling with your weight. And maybe you're not sure how to think about food. Maybe you come from a family like Mel, where, ice cream is like, the norm.
The staple.
Yeah. You might need to connect with somebody. And I would encourage you to connect with somebody like Melissa Bangert, who gets it and who's living it and who's having the victory in it. Well, thank you, Melissa. Thank you for all that you've shared. Thank you for opening your heart to us. Thank you, listener, for joining us today. And Melissa and I wish you peace and love from the Lord above. Have an amazing day. Go out there and live a full life, because the more full that you live, the more unstuck you live. God bless you. Thanks again, Mel. This has been really nice.
I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for having me.